Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Jack of All Trades. I'm your host, Jack Allen, and today you're in for a treat. We're going to go to a jewelry manufacturer and retail outlet right here in Bethel Park and show you how jewelry is made from the beginning to the end. Should be a very interesting show. Sit back and enjoy it. Well, I'm with Jim Riley. Jim is the general manager of Jab Jewelry, so welcome to the show.
Thank you, Jack. We appreciate you being here today.
And it's quite an interesting place that you have here. We're going to talk about the retail that you have, and we're also going to talk about the manufacturing, because I guess that's when you started.
That's the heart of our business, absolutely.
Yeah, so just tell us a little bit about yourself. How did you get into the business?
So I got into the business when I was a young buck, about 16. I was recommended by a jewelry arts instructor in high school, and he recommended me for a job. My first job was an engraver, and I used to solder charms on. So that was my first job in the jewelry industry, and I got gold fever ever since, and it just sort of gets in your blood.
Okay.
I've been doing it ever since.
Okay, so you've now how long have you been with Jab?
I've been with JAB just 3.5 years now. But I've known Joe since the mid '80s.
Right, and I think you told me that. I mean, you're new here. What do you hear, about 3 months, maybe 4 months?
Just in this new space.
Right. And where were you before?
So we were on Washington Road in McMurray, and we'd been there for about 10 years. And he had a place in Castle Shannon, another place in McMurray as well, across the street, sort of hidden. Joe's always kind of serviced the jewelers who don't actually have bench jewelers in their store. So he did, manufacturing and repairs for other jewelers, not necessarily himself. So that was his primary business, and still is to some degree. Yeah.
Okay, so we're in the retail part now, and would you say that's a small? It's an important portion, obviously.
It is.
But it's a small segment of your total business.
Correct. Our primary business is still manufacturing, and we manufacture for other jewelers. That's what made this space so inviting to Joe and his wife Karen when they saw it available. This was an old manufacturing plant for Hallam Machinery, and so they did big metal work, and we do little metal work.
And as we'll see, that you still have a lot of the old machinery parts, and the beams and everything are still here, so you have that industrial feel to it.
Indeed, yeah. It's industrial chic, as I like to call it. Joe kind of incorporated, the old with the new, and it works really well. So we're happy to be here.
And I think that when I was here last time, the jewelry that you have, most of it you don't make here, correct?
Correct. Currently, we don't manufacture most of what we have in our retail location. We have some national brands. We have some boutique style manufacturers that make things for us on a very small scale, but we don't manufacture many of the pieces. However, there are some that we have done. We primarily, in our manufacturing and design studio, kind of do things one of a kind, one at a time, for individuals like yourself, or if your wife wanted something unique and unusual, whether we were using her materials, old stuff that she's got in a box sitting around, or we could start with something
which we
completely
talked
new.
about, and she does. So it's just
I-
a matter of getting it together.
Exactly. I think most everyone does.
Yeah. So how do you get your customers? I guess they're from all around the country, if not the world.
We do. We have clients from everywhere, actually. It's pretty far-reaching. Joe has a great reputation in the industry, and both in the retail section and in the wholesale section. So because of that, we attract people from everywhere, and just over time, word of mouth, is really the best thing.
Now, well, how would the customer approach Joe in your business? Would they call and say, "I have a gem that I want something done with," and then you take it from there, or do they have
Absolutely.
something in mind?
Yeah, absolutely. Whether it's their idea or concept or what design they wish to have, or if they want us to come up with a design, we ask some probing questions and find out exactly
Sure.
what their style is, and then we'll take it from there. Whether they have a sketch or they've seen something that they like, doesn't really matter. We can come up with something for them if they don't. So, and all the design consultations are free. There's not a penny until we decide on something, and then, we make sure that you're satisfied every step of the way.
Okay. Now, so the diamonds or rubies or whatever that they may want something made into, they would send that to you, and then you would design something around that particular piece, whether it be a necklace or earrings or ring or whatever.
Correct.
And then you have that contact back and forth, saying, "Do you like this? Do you like that?"
Exactly. And we can make a wedding band for an engagement ring that conforms exactly. We have a lot of capabilities with some of the equipment and the techniques that we use, and some of our master jewelers that we have on staff, including Joe. And there's nothing we can't do when it comes to jewelry.
Okay. All right. I'm with Oscar Fabian. He's one of the head designers at JB Jewelers, and welcome to the show. And
Thank you.
how did you get into this business, and how long have you been in this business?
So I've been in the business for over 10 years now, and initially I got in because I wanted to make things with my hands, and I used to work on cars, and I was tired of getting dirty, and I still wanted to work with my hands, and I happened to find out that I could do that in the jewelry world through a class that my brother was taking in high school for jewelry manufacturing. And that's kind of what started my journey into jewelry.
That's pretty interesting, going from cars to diamonds.
Yeah, not the normal trajectory.
No. So exactly what do you do here?
So I'm one of the designers, and what I do here is exactly what that title is. So I come up with ideas for customers, or I collaborate with customers with their ideas, and we design something together for them to wear.
Okay, and you have customers from all over?
We have customers from all over. So primarily, we have obviously a lot of local customers, but we have worked with people in other countries. We've also worked with people in a lot of different states in our country.
Okay, and how did they get a hold of you? What would be that process? Would they just call up and say, "I'm looking to do something," or?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we make it very convenient for our customers to get a hold of us. So you can call us, email, text us, Facebook, Instagram, any way that that modern people communicate. That's a venue for you to communicate with us.
The screen that we have on the computer up here, how do you look at for those designs and say, "This is what I suggest," or? I mean, there's a lot of different ideas up there.
Yeah, so typically it starts with a conversation. So we don't normally even get into a design until maybe towards the end of the conversation, or towards the end of the consultation, or specifically if you're working with me, because I want to get a really good idea of what you're interested in, and that is quite a bit of communication, right? Whenever you're having something custom designed, it's a lot more purposeful than buying a piece of jewelry or somebody giving you a gift, right? Because when you're the customer that's looking for something designed, there is somebody that wants something very specific generally, and either it has to it has to fit with their lifestyle or their aesthetics or whatever that purpose is that they want something custom made. So quite a bit of our first consultation is a conversation, me figuring out what it is that you really want. And sometimes customers don't speak the same language that jewelers do, and we have to get on the same page so we can communicate well, and that takes a little bit of time. But eventually we do get to the point where we start actually designing, and depending on the customer and depending on who you're working here at JAB, that's going to kind of steer us in a way where we're either showing you things on computers and using a CAD program like this, where we're kind of showing you things that you can that we can manipulate together as far as the design goes. Sometimes some of that design work is done behind the scenes, either through sketches or through more advanced design programs as well.
I mean, I know it would vary depending on what someone wants, whether it be a necklace, earrings, ring, or what have you. But how long could the process take from the first contact to the finished product?
That's a great question. So when customers ask me that question, the answer that I always give them is another question, which is, when do you need it? Because really, since we do everything here in house, we have the ability to work under most deadlines, and even some really tight deadlines. We made pieces in a week. We deliver pieces in a week. We don't recommend it typically because that is really rushing the process. But we can absolutely do it. I would say our average time is about 6 to 8 weeks.
Okay.
And really, based on our steps that we take, one of them towards the very end is showing you a prototype, so you get to come in and see a sample that we 3D printed for you, and you get to put it on or get to look at the proportions in real life, because it's a 1-to-1. But from the time that you approve that, it's about 3 weeks, okay? And then the time that it takes to get to that kind of varies, but we can absolutely work under very tight deadlines.
Okay. And what's the most unique piece that you've ever designed? I'm sure there's one in your mind saying, "I'll never forget that."
You know what? Actually, there isn't, because we work on really unique pieces all the time, and I've worked on some pieces that I can't even talk about. So, and some of those are really unique.
Yeah.
But you know what? It doesn't. Sometimes, as a designer, it really just turns to be a collaboration with a customer more than anything else. And sometimes it's like gemstones. Since I'm part of the process of the creation, they're all sort of my children, and I don't have a favorite.
Okay. All right. Well, I thank you very much for your insight.
Thank you.
And we wish you luck being a designer here at JAB.
Thank you so much, Jack. It was a pleasure.
All right. I'm with Joe Bonasso, and Joe is the owner. Joe and his wife Karen are the owner of JAB Jewelry. So welcome to the show.
Thank you.
We've been talking about doing this one for a long time, because it's going to be one of the most interesting ones that we've done. So just give us a little bit about your background, how you got into it.
So I started in high school, just taking crafts classes and jewelry making, something that came natural and easy for me. My mother encouraged me to follow that after high school. We had a great teacher through there, and someone working down in the Clark building contacted him and said, "Hey, is there any students coming up that might be interested in a job? We have an opening." And so I took the job, and right out of high school, and just started working in doing repairs, something that came natural for me. So I just continued and just kept taking advantage of opportunities that came my way. Within 5 or 6 years, I started doing repairs on my own, working in my parents' basement. Had an opportunity to partner with somebody down in the Clark building, and so I started a repair shop doing work for other jewelers in the city and around the area.
Okay. And how long have you been the owner of JAB?
So we started JAB in 1989, so it's at 30,
Long time.
a long time, 30 plus years.
Yeah. And I know from speaking to Jim, he used to be in Peters Township on 19.
Yeah.
The opportunity came to purchase this building, which was kind of an eyesore in the community, to say the least.
I've heard.
Yeah. But it's beautiful now.
Yeah, and I used to drive by, always just intrigued by, it didn't look like a big building. It looked like a little thing, trees all
Right.
overgrown. And so when we were looking for space, we had been looking for quite a few years, actually. And we approached the owner, and he was like, "Yeah, I think I'm ready to retire." So it started the ball rolling, and a couple years later, here we are.
Right. I mean, it's beautiful, and certainly the showroom is
Yeah.
really nice. And then what we're going to do back here is go through exactly.
That's the
which-
nice part to me is the shop.
Oh, absolutely. That's the part that's
Yeah.
the most intriguing. I mean, just speaking to Jim and Oscar, it's like, yeah, they can handle the retail part up front, but it's kind of interesting to see what you have in the back and what
Yeah.
the different people do here. So, just if you can just let us know what you're working on at your workstation. You've got a lot of tools.
So this
I'm
is probably my first job since we moved because I've been unpacking boxes for 2 months. But I'm just putting some rings together from Customers Gold. We took some gold, melted it down, and we're hand fabricating. They wanted little knife edge rings, so
So did that come from like one ring or
they
was-
had 2 rings that were in the family, and I think they want to give them to three siblings.
Right.
And so we're taking gold from their family rings, probably from their mother, and we melted it down. I rolled it out, and we're fabricating them into 3 matching bands. We're going to put. There were diamonds also in it. We're going to put a little diamond inside each ring, and then engrave them with the signature of the person who passed away.
No, you're in doing the manufacturing of it. Did someone else design it, or did you work on
We
the
were
design
given
with them?
instructions on what they wanted,
Okay.
which is a plain knife edge band. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, they had an idea what they wanted. In this case.
If you can just point out some of the other things you have on your workbench.
Oh
and
my. Yeah. So.
a lot of unique machines in
We
this
do
place.
have, most of our work is still done with files and saws and hand tools, but we use some modern technology. We have a laser welder over here that helps us to weld metal in a way that we don't have to use a torch. So heat-sensitive stones and things like that, you're able to weld metal together at very close proximity to those without damaging them. Typically, we would use a torch to solder things, but
Okay.
the welders have been something introduced in our industry 15, 20 years ago, and it's become a mainstay. We also use microscopes, so we work at such a small level sometimes that we're magnifying what we're seeing and what we're working on at the bench. You'll see in the shop, almost every jeweler's bench has a microscope.
Okay.
So it's just a lot of little specialty tools for, sometimes you only need it once,
Yeah.
and a lot of jewelers make their own tools too. We're usually pretty crafty and
And Jim
problem
did
solving.
mention it. You do ship all over the country.
yeah, we
and
do
even all
trade
over
work
Europe.
we manufacture for from some other jewelers around the country.
All right. If we can get a tour of
Yeah.
the work areas, that would be great.
Okay.
All right. So Joe, when a job comes in, this is where you begin.
Yeah, so the first step is actually meeting with the customer, having what we could call a design consultation. And then the goal is to come up with a concept that we agree on. Once we have that concept and we agree on it, it comes into our CAD department. Our CAD department uses CAD software to design and prototype the piece before we ever go into manufacturing.
Okay.
So they work on a computer screen. They'll have sometimes it's a sketch, sometimes it's a digital image. They start from there and then they make a 3D model. The 3D model can then be sent to our 3D printers where we would print it in wax and even a resin model, a piece of like a plastic model to show the customer what it's going to look like before we ever go into production.
Okay. So they see the picture first.
Yeah, we would actually send rendering. So we send after the model is completed, we send 3D renderings that can show what the piece is going to look like. They're pictures, obviously, and even
Yeah.
a video of the piece. And from there, if they approve that design, then we go.
Then we go to the
3D
next station.
next stage. So once the design has been approved by the customer and they like the rendering, we move it into our CAM department. Our CAM department is where we 3D print the model. The first thing we do is make a prototype, which is a hard plastic type resin that we can spray paint yellow or white to be able to represent the ring to the customer or pendant or whatever we are making. Once that is approved, we then print them on one of our 3D printers. We have resin printer, and we have a wax printer, and we even use wax mills occasionally. That was the technology we used at first. The wax printer can print a super high detailed piece, and the resin printers with the same detail, but there's some limitations on what kind of designs can be printed on the resin printers. Richie is the one that sets up all our machines for the CAM process, and so he can talk a little bit about the process.
Sure. So once we have the models, like he said, we import it into what's called a slicing software. And that'll take the model, chop it up into hundreds, if not thousands of layers, and we print them one by one on either the resin or the wax. The wax has a print engine that goes over and puts a layer one at a time over and over and over. And the resin printers have a build plate that's upside down. It dips into a liquid, and then light cures the layers one at a time as it's lifted up out of the resin. Milling is the opposite. It's not additive manufacturing, it's subtractive manufacturing. We start with a block of wax and then we mill away what's not necessary.
Okay, so once the model has been approved by the customer, we go into the casting process. This is our casting room. So we take the model that's been approved and we put it on what we call a sprue, and the sprue gets attached to this rubber base, and then we put essentially a tin can around it. That's a piece of steel, obviously. And we fill it up with what we would call, and it's called investment, but it's like a plaster. So that plaster fills this up. Do you have one? I have one? Not hot. Do you have one not hot? Here. So we have a flask filled with investment and the wax. It hardens, and then we put it in one of our ovens. The process gets burned out overnight where the wax dissolves and it leaves an impression of a perfect impression of the ring that we had created. The next step after that is to pour the molten metal in it, and then once we have the molten metal poured in it, that's a casting that we would work with and become the final piece of jewelry that we're making. Okay, so once the pieces are casted, the job moves into the shop where we have our team of jewelers, talented goldsmiths and artisans. This is really where the whole magic happens. All the work is still done by hand. Even though we've used technology to get to this point, it's still all hands-on from this point forward. We employ about 10 jewelers that work at the bench, and then we have people that help out in the polishing and office administration help. There's about 15 people total working in the shop, and this is really the backbone of what we do here. So this is a ring that we had just recently casted. This is cast in platinum. It's going to go to one of our jewelers. We use a custom system that we developed to track our jobs. So the jeweler's going to have a picture of the piece on his computer. He's going to look up the instructions, read through them, and finish it to the specs that we've put down for him.
Size is it? 9.
Okay, now we've seen the process from beginning to end, and now we're back in the showroom. So once it finishes the final stage back there, what do we do now?
That's the fun part. We call the customer and say your piece is ready. Usually takes 3 to 6 weeks depending on the complexity and the back and forth with the design process. But this is the fun part. This is where we've taken grandma's ring and given it to someone, or,
And then
or
you
we're
get the
celebrating an engagement, or
Get the old oohs and ahs.
the oohs and ahs. Yeah.
Yeah.
We know if we can win them over with the concept and the renderings, the final piece is going to exceed those expectations.
Okay, well, we certainly appreciate your time today,
Okay. Yeah.
and we'll give you or wish you the best of luck right here in Bethel Park.
Now, we're grateful for you to be here, and we thank you.
Okay, thanks, Joe. Well, thank you, Jim, for the tour today. We appreciate your hospitality. Just let us know about the things that are going on in the next few weeks here at JAB.
Well, thank you, Jack. So our next open house will be on December 7th, 8th, and 9th. So we're going to have factory tours once again. A representative from one of our vendor partners, Lika Behar, will be here, and with a trunk show, fabulous merchandise, and we're very pleased that she's coming. And Santa Claus is coming on Saturday the 9th, and you can bring your pet.
Bring your pet to see Santa Claus.
Absolutely. Free photos with Santa. So
Okay, that
we have a
sounds good.
photographer who's going to take pictures and post them for you, or electronically send them to you wherever you like to go. So
Okay, great. And just let us know, do you have a website, Facebook page? Let us know how our viewers can get a hold of you.
absolutely. So jabjewelry.com. JAB Jewelry Works. You can just hit JAB and it'll all pop up. So easy to find us. And we're right here on McMurray Road, 531 in our brand new building. We'd love to have anybody is welcome to come.
Okay.
In, so.
Well, we thank you very much.
Thank you, Jack.
Okay. Well, that's our show for today. I hope you enjoyed it. We have a jewelry manufacturer right here in Bethel Park. You got to see how jewelry is prepared from the beginning to the end, and we look forward to seeing you next month.